Goes, we've got the Speaker Pro Tem of the Mississippi House of Representatives, Jason White. Afternoon there, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Appreciate you coming in.
Yes, sir. It's good to be here, Gerard.
So you guys have been down there working on lots of stuff. It seems like it has been active out of the chute here for the 2 weeks and a day that we've been in session.
Very much so. You know, when I first got elected 10 years ago, it seemed like the first month of the session, we just went to cocktail parties and receptions for every association known to man who was wanting to tell you what their legislative priorities would be for the next 2 or 3 months of the session. But between the pandemic kind of cut out all of those social receptions, number one, and then number two, it kind of brought into focus, you know, the legislature, hey, let's do our work and get out of here. And so you're right. We hit the ground running in a big way.
Well, you know, one thing is I miss the coast reception, right? The good food. We always enjoyed
That's
that.
Right.
We didn't do that last year. But I don't know that this is totally unexpected, Representative White, because you look at kind of the hot topics, income tax reform, medical marijuana rising to, I'd say, the top of that list. The work's been ongoing on that all year. We didn't just take this up in this session. This has been going on for a while. So the fact that it is getting attention, traction, we got the medical marijuana bill that passed the Senate, headed over to the House. We got teacher pay raise bills. That was also something that's been talked about for some time. We got different bill in the House, different bill in the Senate. I mean, so these aren't new issues. Now, last week it was Senator Polk that said, typically what we find is that something arises and evolves later on in the session that we did not anticipate, that then sucks all the air out of the room to be consistent with the past. And that may be what happens again. But right now, let's start out by talking about the medical marijuana bill. Let's talk about that one. It passed the Senate overwhelmingly. I think there were 5 dissenting votes of the 52 in the Senate. Headed now to the House. Representative Yancey has been working hard on that continuously over in the House. Senator Blackwell in the Senate. What do you see happening in the House now at this point?
Well, they released the Senate. You know, it held that bill. They released it yesterday.
Okay.
I guess. So it has hit, if you will, on the House end, along with all of the bills that are being dropped. Last night was the deadline for dropping bills. In other words, if you had this great idea of legislation, last night was a deadline at midnight to get it dropped, if you will. Get it, as a representative, you had until last night to put it into the system, if you will.
Okay.
So all of those bills have hit the Speaker's office to be assigned to committees, as well as that bill has come over from the Senate. Normally it's later on when you start getting Senate bills. So that one's in there too. I expect it to be assigned probably most likely to Drug Policy Committee, which Chairman Yancey obviously is the chairman of.
Yep.
And I suspect he will take that and run with it. I do anticipate there will be probably some minor changes to that bill. I believe I heard the Lieutenant Governor say that was the 42nd or 47th version of the bill that they had drafted over there.
Wow.
So you're right. It has been an ongoing process with lots of eyeballs on it and lots of smart people looking at it and trying to make sure that we do this and get it as close to right as we can. I know there's going to, there'll be something that we didn't get right that we have to come back and address. No bill is perfect, and this is a huge program and a huge step for our state. But I think they have been, Kevin and Lee, Senator Blackwell and Representative Yancey have been very intentional about not only getting it right, but being sure we didn't get it wrong like so many states have done. And so, and your cohort, Mr. Gallo, and I had a robust discussion on this issue because I think we are charged with implementing a program, but at the same time, we've got a duty to get it right. And so that's what they have worked hard on. I do expect a few tweaks from the House end. There may be a few more maybe minor conservative measures we can put in there to be sure, if you will. But for the most part, that cake is baked.
Yeah. Well, it would seem like it. Were you surprised at the vote count?
I was surprised at the vote.
Did you expect more nays?
I expected more nays.
Yeah,
I
think I did
expected
too.
Probably 15 nays.
Yeah,
so
ended up with 5.
That's right.
Yeah, so, we should also point out, and I'll let you talk about this, that this bill wasn't drafted in a vacuum. It wasn't drafted without some investigation and review of similar legislation in other states. I know Representative Yancey has shared with me personally the effort that, in fact, had him on the program this past Friday, spent an hour on the show talking about that and other matters. But this wasn't just done without some understanding of what's happened in the other states.
That's right. They spent a lot of time researching that, meeting with folks, meeting with elected officials in those states, specifically Oklahoma, Arkansas, even Colorado, and then turn that just a little bit, meeting with law enforcement, to say, hey, if you could have done it, what do you see as the problem? What you done different? And so we did try to take all the different aspects of that. And those guys, Senator Blackwell and Chairman Yancey have worked extremely hard to get this right. Really. And hey, lots of members have gone to them and said, hey, did you think about this? Would you consider this? We had input from local elected officials, from mayors and boards of aldermen who wanted to see the opt-out language, who still wanted some control, and maybe they felt like 65 didn't give them all of the local control that they thought they needed. So the bill has evolved and it has changed, and I think it's a better product because of that.
Yeah.
And hey, you heard the governor weigh in as recent as this morning on it, and what he wanted to see in a bill, what he wants to see in a bill. Now, he's like me. He saw 46 and 47 votes posted in the Senate, and some people would say that's strong.
Yeah.
When you start seeing that many across party lines on an issue, they call that a position, if you will. So, but at the same time, because of all the different input from the executive branch, from Department of Health and Dr. Dobbs, and from all law enforcement, from Commissioner Tyndall, what he's offered, all these different things have entered into it, and I think we got a better product because of it.
Yeah. I think that's right as well. I agree with you there. I think your statement about they've worked hard to get it right. The challenge, of course, as you well know, is there's sort of different standards on what is right as is defined amongst members and amongst Mississippians as well. So it is a situation where you're certainly not going to get 100% approval. You guys know that. But I think there has been effort there to accommodate everyone's concerns.
There's been an effort while always, and this is what Paul and I debated and talked about on his show, is I think no matter what, we've got to respect the people's vote on this issue. If I want to respect their vote where they reelected me as their representative, I've got to respect their vote that they voted for Initiative 65.
Yeah.
And so Lee and Kevin's job was to keep us as close to that as we could, while knowing, hey, we're putting this in statute. We're a conservative state. We have conservative leaders in the House, Senate, and the governor's mansion. So it should have a conservative spin on it. But at the same time, reflecting the vote of the people on the issue. And I think they've done a good job of balancing that, and I think you saw that in the vote in the Senate last week, and I think you'll see it in the vote in the House.
I would agree. Have you heard from your constituents on this measure?
I have. I won't say more than any issue in my 10 years, but probably right at it. It would be top 3. And I would say the yays far outweigh the nays. I kid some people. My mom teaches the old ladies Sunday school class at First Baptist in Kosciuszko.
Uh-huh.
I heard from them. They were for it. And these are the most conservative set of people that you will ever meet. And they were for it.
Okay.
So I found that to be very interesting.
Okay. Well, that's interesting to hear. Other legislators have mentioned that as well. And there's some that have said that their constituents oppose it somewhat, but there's some more on specific issues and elements than just the general concept. But nonetheless, we got the vote. It's headed your way. What do you think the governor's going to do? I know you don't speak for the governor, of course, but just in handicap that, if you would. We got a break right here. You want to say that now or wait till we come back?
I certainly don't speak for him, but I think this morning he outlined his views on it that he's been consistent about, and I think he'll like the product out of the House.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens there. We got a break right here. We got Speaker Pro Tem Jason White in the SuperTalk Studio. Stay with me. We've got Jason White, the Speaker Pro Tem of the House of Representatives of the great state of Mississippi. I just wanted to share this. There's a couple of questions here on the C Spire text line. Wanted to know who the nays were in the Senate. There were 5, and that consisted of Senators Jennifer Branning, Angela Burks Hill, Kathy Chisholm, Chris Johnson, and Jeff Tate. Yeah, Jeff Tate was the other dissenting nay vote, 5 out of the total, with a final tally there of it was 46-5. I think Senator Harkins was unable to be present, so we lacked one vote of the total 52. So anyhow, that was the deal. All right, so it's coming your way. We'll see what happens on that respect. My guess is there'll be some adjustments and amendments that the House members of the House will want to make. But I don't see any major redoing of the deal, and so you guys may have to get together in conference and sort it out, and we'll see what the governor does at that point. He has been consistent, I think, in his concerns. I believe to a great extent those have been addressed, but we'll see if it is sufficient for him to sign off on it. But in looking at the vote in the Senate, though, Jason, looks like you got a veto-proof situation over there if they were to stay in those columns.
We do, and I think you'll see that. I think you'll see a similar type vote in the House, but more so than veto-proof. I think the vote totals in the Senate and what you'll see in the House will be a reflection of the bill and the fact that so much has gone into it. On the concerns of not only the governor but all of us, myself included. I was not for Initiative 65, but hey, they prevailed. We are where we are, and I'm set to see it through and get the program in place.
Well, I'll have to admit, and I think I speak for a lot of citizens in Mississippi, that we use the citizen-initiated ballot process so infrequently. I don't think until I dug in that I understood that we only have a mechanism to amend the Constitution. And so anything that should pass at the ballot box that was placed and referred to the ballot through the citizen-initiated process is effectively being embedded in the Constitution if it's ratified. And so I have some concerns about that. I think most people share my concerns just from anecdotal sort of straw polling. But in this way, it is under the control and authority of the legislature. So if we got to make some adjustments to it, that's a much easier process than going back and amending the Constitution.
That's right. It'll be in state statute. And I think going forward, as we fix the problems with our initiative process that our Supreme Court pointed out, I think you'll see not only will we fix the problems that they mentioned, we will also provide an avenue for initiatives to go into statute as opposed to the Constitution. Yeah. We may still have a constitutional amendment process. That bar will be higher and different, and things like a medical marijuana program should go into statute, not into the Constitution. Nobody wanted to see marijuana in the Constitution. Yeah. Probably even the folks that paid and put forward that initiative. That was just their only avenue.
I think that's right, but it's not an excuse. It's just that it's used so infrequently.
That's right.
We really weren't educated about it. We hadn't paid attention to it because it's a high bar and it's expensive to get a ballot measure done. And that's a complex and expensive undertaking, a citizen-initiated route. So that's why we don't see it a lot. But nonetheless, here's where. All right, let's talk about tax reform. This is something that you and I and the Speaker have talked about extensively. I think this is a really good deal for the state of Mississippi. I like the changes that have been made. I think, as I said earlier, I think we've improved the bill. What do you see happening there?
Well, your listeners are an engaged bunch on politics and what's going on around the cap. So I won't go back through our bill last year and that process and all that, other than to say, kind of like we talked about at the beginning of today's show, a lot of thought, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of hours have gone into this legislation and making it better. Yeah. I think the House now with in excess of 100 votes in favor of the bill in its current form that is now going to the Senate on doing away with the personal income tax in Mississippi. I think with 100 votes getting bipartisan support, I think it becomes a House position. And in my time around the legislature, when either body develops that strong a following of any particular issue, you sooner or later see it coming into law. And I would say after last year, we passed it. The Senate was not motivated. I believe the Lieutenant Governor's words were he was not interested in a tax swap. I would argue that it wasn't a tax swap, but at any rate, I would say we have done away with those fears or those accusations in the form of we've lowered what we're doing with the sales tax. We're not raising it 2.5 cents. We're only raising it 1.5 cents,
right.
Which is, you've cut 40% out of what you were raising there. Yep. But the numbers work. It's a little more conservative plan. It's simpler. Cuts the grocery tax in half while doing away with income tax, and it cuts Mississippians' car tag cost in half.
Right.
Those are three real expenses and real things that people see, feel, and know about. And, for me personally as a Republican, as a conservative, and that's what we say we are, I don't know any other piece of legislation that you could be more in favor of and support than this. And if you're not for it, then you're against it. You can't just say I'm not for it because a lot of people that's way smarter than me, Gerard, have looked at the bill. I mean, folks, even outside Mississippi that per se don't have a dog in the hunt, and they say, that's the deal right there. That's where you should be going. That bill is good. Some people have said they would pass the bill just because of the cap that's put on growth on the 1.5%. Everything over that, goes to buy down the income tax. So
right.
I think the bill in its current form is much improved. I think it's much simpler. And so this idea that, it's complex, we can't understand it, too many moving parts, all these other things, those notions have been shot down. It's time for action on it. And I think the House is going to, look to our counterparts in the Senate, for that action on doing away with the income tax. Not playing around with it, not cutting it a little bit and doing lip service to it, but doing away with it. And as long as that's on the table, I think how we get there, I think the House will be engaged.
Yeah, I hope so. So originally, the original bill called for an increase of the general sales tax from, as you pointed out, from 7 to 9.5. Now that's been whittled down to 8.5. The grocery tax, how did that change from the original bill to now?
It's about the same. It doesn't come in as quick.
It's phased in.
Yeah, it's phased in a little slower. But another key aspect of the current bill over last year's bill is this. We not only raised sales tax on your general sales tax rate 2.5 cents, we raised all special exemption taxes. Like, in other words, you buy cars at 5%
right.
or certain equipment or things that go into manufacturing, whatever their sales tax rate was, those went up 2.5 cents as well.
Yep.
And then the bill in its current form does not touch any of those inputs, any cars, big ticket items, none of that stuff increases. Strictly the general sales tax rate of 7.
The other big feature, though, that's really good for Mississippians that I know is not an enjoyable investment is car tags.
Car tags.
And, we have kind of had an outsized car tag fee relative to other states, and I think Mississippi has been maligned in the conservative tax circles for that. So that's really being addressed. I happen to think, and you remember I said this when I testified, that's a bigger factor in purchasing a vehicle than the sales tax.
Look, it really is. And when we were talking about things that we hear from constituents about, such as the medical marijuana program, I hear from constituents about car tags as much as anything, because they feel that when they walk in that tax collector's office and write that big check.
Yeah, it's a lump sum.
Whereas, maybe your income tax comes out monthly. Yeah. You don't feel it in the same way as if you're cutting that check. And they have to cut that check for that car tag. And so, buddy, they feel it and they want you to know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that has made this bill very popular, if for no other reason than people are like, you're cutting my car tag in half? I'm on board.
For it, yeah.
I'm for it.
Because it virtually affects everybody in this state, because we're a dispersed state.
That's right.
Our population is, and we have to get in our cars to travel around. So it's a good deal. All right, let's talk about teacher pay. You got a Senate bill, you got a House bill. Of course, Chairman Bennett in the House says his bill's better than the one in the Senate. And then Senator DeBar over on the Senate. So they're fairly similar, honestly.
They're fairly similar, and I remind my my Senate counterparts just kidding around that Senator DeBar, he came to the House for training for a few years before we sent him down to the Senate. But no, he's a great guy, and Senator DeBar's plan is a good plan.
Yeah.
I like our plan better. It's a little more front loaded, and it takes care of our assistants. It gets our starting pay, which has been the big issue.
That's the big
gets
issue.
it up there, and we just get that off the table. We knock that out, and so that's what I like about that. But I think you'll see this House and Senate come together and make something work on that issue.
I look forward to that. Representative White, it's been great having you in the studio today. Appreciate all your efforts, sir, and I'll probably see you down at the Capitol before it's all over with.
Good
to have you.
Thank you for being here, Gerard.
You got it. We'll take a break here on Middays. We got more when we come back.